Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Today brings Volume 5 of my heavy rotation series, starting with David Crosby's If I Could Only Remember My Name. You know, looking back on it now, it's hard to believe that the music critics of its era almost universally panned this record. Lester Bangs, writing for Rolling Stone, called it a perfect oral aid to digestion when you're having guests over for dinner. And Village Voice critic Robert Christgau gave it a D-, dismissing it as a disgraceful performance. You know, it was only much later that Crosby himself said that those contemporaneous reviewers were looking for another record that was full of big, flashy lead guitar and blues licks and screaming lyrics. And If I Could Only Remember My Name was not where everything else was going, so they thought it was irrelevant. But most of my contemporaries saw it as the shambolic masterpiece that it was. Meandering? Yes. But transcendentally so, and just bursting with remarkable, brilliantly conceived and performed frayed threads of mood and atmosphere. And not only is it among the finest Splinter albums out of the CSN&Y canon, but it is also one of the more defining musical moments of that era. Now, this record combines David's then still resounding, silky, unmistakable voice, a voice that was referred to by one critic as the epitome of hippie crooning, with occasionally inspired songwriting, turning this record into a one-time wonder of ethereal, authentic California ambience. The list of guest musicians reads like a who's who of the Haight-Ashbury music scene, including members of Jefferson Airplane, Santana, and the Grateful Dead. He featured the contributions of many of those closest to him, like Graham Nash, Neil Young, and Joni Mitchell, and he included many other monster artists of that time, like David Freeberg, Paul Kantner, Grace Slick, Greg Raleigh, Jerry Garcia, Mickey Hart, and Phil Lesh. And if I'm being complete here, I'd have to acknowledge that perhaps a good portion of this LP's success may also be attributed to the work of a remarkable producer and engineer, Stephen Barnard, who had co-produced and engineered the Grateful Dead's American Beauty just the year before. Now, with a diverse range of material, including transitory sketches of inspiration like the angelic chorale vocal showcase Orleans, and the a cappella I'd Swear There Was Somebody Here, to the rambling Western epic cowboy movie. These songs are so relaxed, so laissez-faire, and each song offers up its unique panoramic landscape. Now, as I mentioned, when it was first released, some critics were put off by the obscure, cosmic storytelling of tracks like the simply gorgeous Laughing, a longtime system demo favorite of mine, or the ambiguous yet pointed social questioning of what are their names. But when you look at it as what it actually represents, a snapshot of the period in which it was crafted, it may then be seen as an incredibly decisive work. And sonically, it's a marvel. As it turns out, David Crosby himself had picked up a special talent that helped lift these guitar recordings to their astonishing heights. Over his time with Joni Mitchell, David had learned some unusual guitar tunings, including the now popular Open D, which has been used by artists as varied as Richie Havens, Neil Young, Bruce Cockburn, Barry Gibb. But he soon had cultivated an unusual ability to not just tune guitars perfectly, but to microtune them with striking accuracy, which gives the sound an unmistakable, sumptuous edge. Now, the recording sessions took place at the recently opened Wally Heider Studios in San Francisco. And again, I must give due credit to Stephen Barnard's innovative microphone placement techniques, as well as to his having had the luxury of recording the album at 30 inches per second, allowing them to be captured with the richest possible sonics. Now, the mid-range purity, along with its vibrant tonal color and accuracy, are clearly among this recording's biggest gifts to music lovers. Listening to cuts like Laughing, you simply cannot resist the beauty, resonance, and seductive tone of those beautifully recorded guitars, including Jerry Garcia's pedal steel guitar, supported by Phil Lesh's dulcet bass tones, all beautifully rendered, laying bare their beautifully captured sparkle and inflection. Listening into the mix, you are permitted to readily identify each distinctive and individual voice, most notably the high harmony vocalizations of Joni Mitchell as the cut winds to a close. You really owe it to yourself to hear this remarkably magical slice of the California music scene and to luxuriate in its lush and beautiful tonality. Now, while I am still absolutely amazed by the sonics captured on this original 1971 U.S. Atlantic release, which, until the superb MoFi reissue was released, offered the best sonics I had heard from this record. That includes last year's somewhat disappointing 50th anniversary Atlantic reissue. But I have to admit, this is yet again one of those times where MoFi has hit it out of the park. And to this point, Jim Davis, president of Mobile Fidelity, has acknowledged that this was the last title they captured and cut from the Source Master tape without a DSD step. Okay. Now, next up, Dream Theater's second album, 1992's progressive metal masterpiece, Images and Words. With this record, Long Island, New York's Dream Theater not only found their sonic signature, but they established a benchmark for progressive metal that many, me included, would argue has yet to be bested. Now, while this record is so completely different from my first selection today, I assure you that it is every bit as exceptional. And I'll wager that if you were to look up the definition of progressive metal music in an internet-based music dictionary, you'd be given a link to hear this record. Hi, baby. You okay? Go lay down, sweetie. Okay, I get it. No, go lay down, baby. I have to thank my long-term accomplice and audio bud, Mark Morningstar. Are you watching, Marcus? For turning me on to this record, well, it was actually a CD then, shortly after it was released. At that time, I was managing a small audio salon in State College, PA, and Mark worked with me in sales when he wasn't drumming in his rock band, Thin Ice. In fact, we worked together at several of the establishments I managed back then. Now, founded in 1985 by Boston's Berklee College of Music students, guitarist John Petrucci, bassist John Mayung, and drummer Mike Portnoy, they soon added keyboard player Kevin Moore and recruited vocalist Chris Collins. They had originally chosen the name Majesty, an appellation they had liberated from a lyric in Bastille Day, the opening track from Canadian rock band Rush's third album, Caress of Steel. Now, under that original name, they released an 8-tune demo simply called the Majesty Demos in 1986, and they sold all 1,000 copies within 6 months. But over those next few months, the band rebranded themselves as Dream Theater, a name that is said to be inspired by the now demolished California Theater. And according to Mike Portnoy and John Petrucci, by late 1986, it was also decided to let Chris Collins go, as he just didn't seem to be the right choice. They simply didn't see the ability or drive in him that they felt necessary to represent them as a frontman when performing live. They also pointed to his vastly different outlook on what Dream Theater should or could be. And so they began a search for a new vocalist. In November of 1987, after a considerable period of auditioning for possible replacements, the group settled on Charlie Dominici. Soon thereafter, they found themselves signing with Mechanic Records as they began working on their first full-length album. Now, this relationship with this label was uncomfortable at best, mostly due to delays caused by what seemed to be the label's mismanagement, which had limited these guys to performing in small clubs and bars. And when their first LP was released, 1989's When Dream and Day Unite, no one was really impressed, least of all the band. So, frustrated by this unfulfilling experience, Dream Theater severed its ties with Mechanic and fired Dominici. Now, after spending nearly 2 years long searching for the right vocalist, the search ended in late 1991 when a demo tape from Canadian vocalist James LaBrie, formerly of the glam metal band Winter Rose, arrived. They arranged for him to fly to New York to audition and were so impressed that he was immediately invited to join the band. What are you doing, baby? So, signing with Atco and Atlantic's fledgling East West Records America, Dream Theater released its second album, Images and Words, in 1992. Now, while overtly influenced by bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Queensryche, Rush, and yes, these cats show off their extraordinary prowess with their respective instruments. Here, on only their sophomore effort, it becomes clearly apparent how guitarist John Petrucci has come to be considered a virtuosic American guitarist, composer, and producer, as well as an accomplished solo artist. Now, I will admit to being almost as spellbound by Mike Portnoy's percussion work as I am with Neil Peart. He has proven himself to be a rhythmic linchpin of the modern progressive metal and hard rock scenes. And beside having co-founded Dream Theater, he has been the drummer for more than a half a dozen other bands and toured or gigged with a dozen more. His effortlessness comes through so clearly here, as his timekeeping and tempo changes really contribute and help to express the power and drive on this LP. And speaking of driving forces, bassist John Myung doesn't disappoint either. He began playing bass guitar at the age of 15, after having played violin from the age of 5. And he's been with Dream Theater for the entire time the group has been together. And Kevin Moore's keyboards have been inextricably and intricately woven throughout this record's litany of strongly constructed tracks. While operatically trained James LaBrie shows not only an absolutely impressive range with his lyric tenor style, but he also cites his musical inspiration as coming from many different genres and artists, including artists Don Dokken, Nat King Cole, Sting, and Freddie Mercury. Regardless, his vocals set the bar for prog metal delivery and heartfelt emotional content. Now, their undisputed ability to create sophisticated, melodic, and tight tracks, rife with urbane lyrics and dense thematic content, while fluently incorporating the more diverse elements utilized in syncopated prog, hook-fueled hard rock, riff-driven metal, and power chord construction from blues, metal, even funk, combine to define their simply exceptional and unique sonic signature. Oh, and I'll dare you to find another progressive metal band that has been recorded with any better production value. Now, not only has Images and Words maintained its position over the years as the band's most commercially successful studio album, having sold more than 600,000 copies, Side 1's opening cut, Pull Me Under, has the distinction of being their only top 10 hit. It also had more recent success, having been selected for use in the 2008 video game Guitar Hero World Tour. But what a freaking opener. Guys, get ready, because this track sets the tone and the experience for the rest of this amazing album. The second cut on Side 1, Another Day, takes its foot off the accelerator, just a bit, and features saxophonist and founder of the fusion band Spyro Gyra, Jay Beckenstein. Now, while a sax contribution may seem a bit out of place on a prog metal cut, just wait until you hear it. And James LaBrie really lays into it, showing you what he can pull off with his powerful yet nuanced tenor voice. Next, the first cut on Side 2, Take the Time, puts the pedal to the metal again. Now, even if you have never listened to any music like this before, you will soon understand and marvel at what virtuosic talent it takes to play this frenetically, this tightly, with these time changes and tempos, and to pull off such a powerful composition. Closing Side 2 is Surrounded. Dialing down the cadence yet again, This is such a lovely, melodic, and catchy tune. Again, highlighting the compositional strength of this superbly capable group of artists. Side 3 opens with Metropolis Part 1, The Miracle and the Sleeper. From its ethereal, airy opening, it quickly blurs into a metal power chord rush, dragging you along with it. John Petrucci and John Myung's guitar chops, along with Mike Portnoy's percussion work, just shine here, leading up to the staccato closing. And if there was ever any doubt that Dream Theater was hugely influenced by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, just check out this cut starting at about 7 minutes or so. If you don't hear the influence of cuts like Trilogy and Living Sin from ELP's 1972 Trilogy, you haven't been paying attention. Closing side 3 is Under a Glass Moon. Petrucci's brilliance on his instrument shines again, leading this tour de force of complex contributions from each artist. God, Petrucci can play his butt off. Waiting for Sleep opens side 4 and is the most contemplative work on this collection. This was a solo composition written by Kevin Moore, and his pleading, emotive keyboard work deservedly takes the lead. Finally, Learning to Live closes side 4 of this masterpiece, unmistakably reaffirming the power, nuance, and expert technique of this group of gifted and expressive artists. It is distinctly Dream Theater. Now, before you throw up your hands and brush off this record saying you just don't see yourself as a prog metal fan, I mean, why would you do that? I'd ask you to give this LP a test drive. I have included a Qobuz link in the description section today. And really open your senses to Dream Theater's musicianship and songwriting. These cats are more than merely a cut above the norm. They represent the pinnacle of the genre. This is one exceptional recording, lyrically, musically, and sonically. And though I've never run across an original 1992 European Atco release, Atco Records 7567-9214-1, if I could find a reasonably priced mint minus copy, the last 2 times I've checked Discogs, they were starting at over $350. I'd really love to give it a listen. Now, if you've heard it or have it, let me know your thoughts on that particular pressing. In the interim, I've settled on the 2013 U.S. Brookville Records double LP on black vinyl, BRK 216. Now, I mentioned my copy is on black vinyl only because they also released this title on a red and gold swirl vinyl as well. Now, I will also mention that the 2013 Atco Records Music on Vinyl reissue, MOVLP 780, which is a single 180 gram LP. And it's actually not too far off the Brookville. It's a close cop. It's close. You'll enjoy that too. Well, that's it for Volume 5 of my heavy rotation series. I hope you enjoyed this. Till next time, keep the music playing.